Hi, everybody. Welcome to Summer Sanity. It is possible. I am Julie Freedman Smith, and I live and work and play and raise my family on Treaty 7 land. I live here in Mohkinstsis, and I'm committed to learning more about and from the original people who lived on this land, and I encourage you to join me in that commitment. I'm really glad you're joining me here for this webinar. I know there are some people live on the webinar, and there are a number of you who have asked for the replay. So by all means, benefit from it however you can, and we'll see where we go from here. All right, so let's get started here on my presentation. So first of all, welcome to today's class. Here is the agenda. Here's what we're going to do. And I really want to make this as I want to keep it down to an hour. I have some things to share, but it's very much, if you have questions, you're welcome to jump in and share them with me. We'll try and make this as interactive as possible. So first of all, we're going to just talk about who are you, who am I, and why are we here? Then we're going to talk about the homework that you have to make your summer sane. We're going to talk about power struggles and how to manage those as they come up, because that's a big part of what happens in the summer. We're going to talk about attention-seeking behavior. We're going to talk about screens, because I'm always asked questions about screens from parents. And we're going to talk about building connection with our kids. And I'll try and throw in as many tips as I possibly can during this session. So first of all, who are you? I would love to know what age your kids are, the age you the age of kids that you are raising. You don't have to give me tons of information. You don't have to give me names, but I just love to have a sense of that so that I can have my best information, make sure I'm giving you the information for your age of child or children. And feel free all the way along the presentation to pop questions into the chat. And then I will do my best to stop at a fairly regular rate and check in on those questions as we go. If there are questions that pertain to a large group of people, I'm happy to answer them. If there's something that's really, really super unique to you, we can certainly set aside some time to check in on those questions one-on-one. And so we've got a 7-year-old and a 15-year-old. Okay, so we've got a large scope of people who are actually on the call. And I know many of the people who have registered have kids who are in that 3 to 5 age level. And so I'll do my best to give my information as broadly as I can. So the next question is, who am I? And actually, I think the two people on the call know who I am. But in case you don't know who I am, I'll make it brief. I am a mom. I have been a parenting expert for over 20 years in the media. I've worked one-on-one with families and in group settings for, again, over 20 years. I'm an author of the book, A Year of Intentional Parenting, co-author of that book. And I'm here to help you be the kind of parent that you want to be, or the kind of grandparent. I share tips that are tactical, practical, and personal. I am not here to judge. I am never here judging. I am really here to listen and help. And I have enjoyed watching parents' shoulders go down and the sparkle in their eye as they get it and they find a way to do something that they didn't know how to do before. And I love hearing from families who tell me that I'm making a difference. Just like Lana told me actually last week, you helped turn our family around. You gave us tools and a different perspective. And when I thanked her, she said to me, you were a game changer for me, which was so fulfilling to hear. So these are the moments over 20 plus years that I've enjoyed, and looking forward to sharing some of this information with you today. So I'm going to talk fast because I want to get it all in. But if you need me to slow down, let me know, and I will do my best. You might not need to watch the replay at 2 times the speed because I might be talking too quickly. So here's what you need to know. You do not need to be perfect. There are no perfect parents and there are no perfect children. But you do need to be clear, and it's all about expectations and outcomes. Kids cannot read our minds. So a lot of what I want to talk about today is how we can make sure that we're not getting our kids to read our minds. We're communicating with them, we're engaging with them, and having them be a part of the solution. So here's your work. Here's the work that needs to be done first. Once we know what we want, we can communicate it to the kids. And for the grandparents in the crowd, I'm going to say our kids, but I'm talking about your grandkids as well. If we don't know what we want, there's no way that our kids can know. And if we're unclear, we're probably letting them know different things at different times. When we're tired, we're probably letting things go. When we're super alert, we're probably extra attentive. And so that's not really fair either. So the clearer we can be on the kinds of things we want, then the easier it is to let our kids know that. So I've just got a couple of questions here for you, and there are many more, of course. But the first question is, what's important to you each day? So what are the things you want to make sure your kids are doing? I've put some answers here, but they don't have to be your answers because you need to make this work for your family. So is there some kind of physical activity you want your kids doing every day? Do you want them reading? Do you want them working? I know a lot of people feel like they really don't like their kids not doing math and kind of that kind of very thinky stuff over the summer. I think we can make that happen with games and other things. But if you've got a series of things that you want your kids working on, some kind of a worksheet or something, if that's something you want them doing every day or 3 days a week, you need to know that. You need to make it clear. Chores, your chores, their chores, stuff you want to be doing together. Do they need to have quiet time? I highly recommend that because too much togetherness can be overwhelming for everybody. So those are some of the questions to answer. Another one is, do you need time on your own? So as the caregiver, do you need time to get other work done, to get tasks done, to just have some peace and quiet? And if so, how much and how often? When do you want that? The clearer you can get with that, it's going to help you more clearly shape your day and work with your kids to shape your day. Obviously, if you've got really, really little kids at home, your ability to have time on your own is going to shift compared to if you've got teenagers at home or slightly older children. But we're going to talk about that today and figure out how we can carve that time out and how we can really encourage independent play for those youngsters as well. And then another question that comes up, what are your meal expectations? Is your kitchen the kind of kitchen that's just open all the time and everybody can help themselves to food? Or are you pretty clear that you have certain times for eating and certain times where nobody's getting any food? How does that work for you? Again, there's no right answer here, but the clearer you can get for what works in your home, the clearer you can be about sharing that with your kids. So let's move on. Here's something that I love to share with parents because I think a lot of the battles that we have when our kids are at home all the time have to do with this need for power and attention. So the first part of my presentation is really going to be focused on those two things. Kids really want power and control in situations, and they really want attention. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do about that, because that's not going to change. So how we respond is really what we do have control over. So let's start with kids wanting power or control. Let's go a little deeper there. So once you've got your idea about the kinds of activities that you want to do, when you want some quiet time, what the meal times are going to look like, then once we've done that planning, you can ask your child to give input on certain things. So part of your job is to know where you want input, because as soon as we start asking our kids things like, do we want to do reading first today, or do we want to get outside? Or do we want to get outside when it's really hot, or should we go outside while it's cool? If you know for a fact that you want to get your kids outside early in the day when it's not hot, then don't ask that question. That's just one of the givens. We're going outside early before it gets too hot. But where you do want their input, where they can have a say, where there is a choice, that's where you want to gather their input. And as soon as you ask them, they feel like you care about what they have to say. They feel like they have some power in the situation. So we want to involve them in as many places as we can, but we don't want to ask them questions where we don't want them to have choice, because those are things that we just say, this and this are the way it's going to be. And here's where I really need your help in deciding how this is going to work. So the next part is show them and tell them. Make it visual and concrete. So for those of you with teenagers, I still think this is super helpful. I still think having a clear explanation of the rules, the chores, things that need to be done in a very clear visual place is important, because then nobody can say, oh, well, I thought you said this, but you actually said that. And as a parent, we can't say, well, I told you this, but maybe you didn't. So if it's written down, it's super clear. But, and I just printed these off behind me, I'm just grabbing them off the printer. In no way am I saying you should go out and have to do some very, very fancy craft. But you can print off, and I don't know if you can see it, just a daily calendar. And I just Googled calendar and printed it out. And you can print off also just a daily schedule. Like this one, I just made it a 2-column table, and it says breakfast, morning 1, snack, morning 2, lunch, afternoon 1, snack, afternoon 2, get dinner ready. So if you have something like that on your fridge, you can either have it like that, or you can take a handy dandy little plastic page protector, slip it inside. And then if you have that on your fridge, you can use dry erase markers every day to talk about what the plan of the day is going to look like. If you have kids who aren't reading yet, you can do it with pictures and words. If you have kids who are reading, you can just do it with words. Or you could get them to draw the picture and you could write the word. Whatever it is, make a plan for the day, how you're going to block the day out, what times the different snacks are and the different meals are, and make it as concrete as you can. And if you know that every Thursday is swimming lesson and every Tuesday you're going grocery shopping, then on the bigger calendar, get some stickers and get your kids to put those stickers on so they can see what's happening for that week. You might want to do a monthly calendar, or you might just want to do the week and have them be involved. If you've got super crafty kids, they can be involved in helping to make the calendar, and it can be fancier than that. But it doesn't need to be fancy, but what it does need to be is at their height, where they can see it. And ideally, they have some involvement in the planning of the day, or at least the planning of some parts of the day. I was talking to a client who said that there's just constant arguing at her house about what people are having for breakfast. Doesn't need to happen that way. You can plan a week's worth of breakfast. You can sit down and say, what are all the things we want to have for breakfast? Here's breakfast on Monday. Here's breakfast on Tuesday. Here's breakfast on Wednesday. Write it all down. Get them suggesting, and then it's there. And then when they come down, instead of saying, what does everybody want for breakfast? You can actually say to your kid, head over to the calendar and tell me what's for breakfast today. And they'll tell you. And they feel like they've got power because they know they don't have to read your mind. So yeah, that really comes to my last point here. Check in with them and ask them. Instead of being that nagging person who's always forcing your kids to telling them what we're doing next. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do this. And have them ask, what are we doing next? When are we going to the zoo? When are we having snack? What time? Have it written down on the fridge or somewhere in your house that's very, very clear for them. And when they ask a question, you can say, why don't you go check? And then you come back and tell me what's next. You come back and tell me what time snack is. You tell me what's on the plan for this afternoon. So involving our kids that way and asking them questions means they feel that they've got power in the situation. Okay, and that's the same for our teens too. If you know that you, we'll talk about screen time a little bit later, but if you know that you've got certain things that you need them doing before other things, those things need to be written down. And so they need to know that before they have access to the Wi-Fi password, these things need to happen. Or they need to know that they need to do X and Y in the morning, and then the afternoon is their free time, or however it is that you set it up with them and involve them in the discussion. Then they can be a part of that too, but it's written down so that everybody's clear on what's expected. So questions that I often get from parents: what do I do when we're in a power struggle? So a power struggle is when one person wants something and the other person wants another thing, and you're fighting about power. And power struggles mean that both people are fighting over power. So the adult is fighting over power and the kid is fighting for power. And whenever we're in that situation where it's you against your child, if you can make it you and your child against the situation, then you're both on the same side. So instead of saying, I'm going to do this, or you do this, no, I won't do this, you have to do this, no, I won't do this, we can make it, wow, we're stuck here. You want this, I want this. How do we make this work together? And so as soon as we ask that question of how, it's both of us working towards the same angle. And with young kids, that can work super effectively. With teenagers, it might take a little longer in the sense that they may be quite involved. Actually, many kids might be quite involved in the idea of the argument. So they might not be willing to give up the argument that fast. But if we stop playing the game and we say, oh, yeah, I can hear you really want that. Okay, so how do we make it so that both of these things can actually happen? Then we're working together instead of fighting against. And another part, something just popped into my head and then left. So I'm sure it'll come back. So that's what we do when we're in a power struggle, is we notice that it's a power struggle, and then we immediately turn it to, how can we make this happen? Oh, I know, sometimes there's no time for that. So sometimes you're trying to get out the door to a swimming lesson or something you were supposed to meet someone at, and you're having a fight over putting on shoes or putting on sunscreen or something like that. And that's a situation where you say, this is something we have to solve. And right now we're getting in the car, and you pick up the child and you put them in the car for those kids who can't get their shoes on or whatever it is. With a teenager, you're not likely to pick them up, but what you can say is, you let me know when you're ready to work on this, and then we'll solve the problem. So it's a little bit different with a teen, but there are times where you can't take a lot of time to solve the problem in the heat of the moment. So you need to move forward and keep going. Just a thought about sunscreen that I just was thinking of. I've seen two really great tips. One is powder sunscreen that you just brush on, and it's not greasy or anything. We use it here at our house. I can give you the name of it if you're interested. Seems to be a nicer thing for kids to put on their faces, especially. And the other thing is that I've seen a lot of people put it on with a makeup brush, and it seems to be much nicer than smearing it on with your hands. Lots of kids seem to be fine with that. Maybe sunscreen isn't your issue. I just wanted to drop that tip. Okay, question 2, how do I stop nagging? Well, one of the ways, now I'm not saying that you have this question, but I do hear this a lot because parents feel like they have to say things over and over and over again. And that's about kids not listening the first time. And in fact, both of these questions are about kids not listening the first time, or kids only listening if I get to the point where I'm yelling. So I want to spend a moment or two talking about why kids don't listen. And we're going to see that normally, developmentally, kicks in sometime around the age of 3 is typically when we have kids who aren't listening to us. We train kids to not listen to us. So when kids know that we're probably going to say something 2, 3, 4 times before we actually mean it, they get used to not listening. And then typically they start to listen when they know we mean it, which for some people is yelling. For some people, it's getting very quiet, but talking very sternly with a frown. For some people, it's a bulging vein in their neck. For some people, it's grabbing the kid and getting them to listen. So whatever it is, I invite you to consider how many times you're asking something before it's really the time that your child needs to listen. And instead of that, we just want to take all of those times out, and we want to move to a situation where we're with the child, when we give the instruction, right with them. We get their attention, we give the instruction, and we immediately direct them to follow through. So what does that look like? Well, if it looks like they need to come down for lunch, we're not yelling at them from inside the house when they're outside. We're not yelling at them from down at the bottom of the stairs when they're upstairs, because they can pretend to ignore us, or they can really be ignoring us, especially if they're on a screen or they're playing and they're very into imagination. They won't be hearing us. So instead, we go to the child. We get between them and the screen, or we put a hand on their shoulder. We get between them and what they're doing, and we give the instruction. It's time to come down for lunch. And we might say, do you need help tidying this up? Or are you going to do it on your own? But we're right there so that we can help them to get off the screen, help them to tidy up the toys, and bring them down for lunch, or bring them in for lunch. We go to the child before we give the instruction. So then we only have to say it once, and we're not frustrated and feeling disrespected, because we've said it 4 times and they aren't listening. We're there, we give them the instruction, and we facilitate it happening. And as we do that, our kids start to learn that we're only going to say something once, and then we're going to expect it to be done. So this is a task that takes time for us to learn as well, because if we're used to saying something over and over and over again, then we're probably going to just start giving that instruction. So you have to just notice, have you given an instruction? Are you yelling as you're giving an instruction? If you are, stop, go to the child, give the instruction, give them time to make it happen, and then direct them. Are you heading downstairs, or should we go together? Do you want to hold my hand, or how are we getting there? And if it's an older child, they probably don't want to hold your hand, but you're involving them and asking them to come. And if the activity that they're doing is so distracting and stopping them from joining you, then there's a possibility that that's not the time for them to be doing that activity if it's too distracting for them to listen. So next time you might need to change the order of the activities so that they can come when you're asking them. Another way to stop nagging is exactly the way that I mentioned in that last slide, which is if you've got things printed out with the answers, then when a child comes to you, or when you don't have to go to the child and say, do this, do that, do this, do that. You can say, what does the calendar say? Where are we supposed to be going today? What kind of things do we need to get ready for that? So you can be asking questions instead of giving direction. And when we give orders, we often invite defiance. But when we ask questions, our kids are often willing to answer them. So it's another way to engage our kids without always giving orders. All right, let's keep going here. Maybe we can't. Okay, so that's all the things on power. Let's go into attention and let's go a little deeper. Now, the first place that I want to go with attention is some of you know that in January, I started a new community called Parent Break. And Parent Break is a free weekly online community where you can come, parents can come from 9 to 9:30 a.m. on Wednesday mornings on Zoom. And we meet for half an hour. We do a little bit of meditation, a little bit of journaling. I share a parenting tip, and we just talk in community. And it's really so that we can have a little bit of time to connect with ourselves and a little bit of time to connect with others. So why am I telling you about this now? Well, I do want you to know about it because it's a free service that I created just to create opportunities for parents to give themselves a little bit of a break, but also to help parents realize that we're part of a community and we're all going through many of the same things. And when we can talk about it and share, it doesn't feel so shameful. It doesn't feel so alone. So what I thought I would do with the topic of attention, this morning's Parent Break was on the topic of attention. So I thought we would take 6 minutes and I would just play for you the meditation that we did this morning in our Parent Break. So I'll just give you an opportunity to take 6 minutes and spend some time with yourself, and you'll start to hear the kinds of things that happen at Parent Break, and you'll learn some things about attention as well. So I'll just come out of this share and I'll come into, I'm not sure, Kath, why you are the highlight here. Maybe I'll make myself the highlight. I'm going to share my audio here. And just invite you to sit comfortably, try to be in a situation where you don't have too many distracting things around you. And we'll just go for this 6 minutes of guided meditation from our Parent Break this morning. Here we go.
Hello and welcome. My name is Julie, and I'm glad that you're here for this Parent Break. If your eyes are open, I invite you to close them, and let's settle in for today's meditation. To begin, I invite you to place one hand on your heart, and let's take our first breath together to move from the outside in. We'll inhale, release. Now let's move one hand to your solar plexus. Place the other hand on your ribs at the side of your body. Let's inhale Release. Again, inhale. Release. Did you notice any change in the depth of your breath? Let's place our hands on the abdomen. Focus our attention there. And inhale. Release. As you continue to breathe normally, I invite you to direct your attention to the inner right corner of your mouth. Notice how it feels. Invite some movement there and to the areas of the face directly around it. Continue to notice. Let's spend one more breath there. Check in to notice whether there's a difference in feeling between the right and left inner corners of your mouth. I invite you to now focus your attention on the inner left corner of your mouth. Notice the feeling in the areas of the face directly around it. Invite some movement. Notice whether there's been any change in the feeling around your mouth from before we paid attention until now. Continue breathing freely, and let's scan the body from head to toe. Move slowly and notice if there is anywhere in your body where tension is residing. Take your time. Our bodies hold tension in different locations. Slowly scan and notice anywhere that draws your attention. If you find any tension, I invite you to gaze internally at that part of the body. Let your eyes give an inner smile there, and let's breathe into that area, inviting the tension to melt with each exhale. Let's focus on that area and inhale. Release. Inhale. Release. Keep checking in with the body to focus your attention in areas of tension. We've been focusing on our own bodies today. When we give something attention, it can feel better without having to act up to get our attention. And when a part of the body starts to act up, we can focus our attention and help it to feel better. These same principles can be used in parenting. When things are going well and we give our attention, no one has to misbehave to get that attention. When the smallest things start to ask for our attention, giving it early means that no one has to misbehave to get our attention. Let's take one more breath together and move forward into the rest of the day. Let's inhale. Release. If you're joining me live at Parent Break, I'm going to put 8 minutes on the clock for some private journaling. And if you're joining us on a replay on Insight Timer, I invite you to do the same. I'm so glad that you were here today at Parent Break.
So welcome back. That is just a little nugget of part of what we do at Parent Break. And if you would ever love to join us, you are very welcome to do so. I hope that you're awake. I hope you didn't fall asleep. And I hope that you enjoyed a little bit of time for connection with yourself and attention for yourself. The journaling prompt today was, what does it feel like to be the focus of your own attention? We spend so much of our time giving our attention to everybody else. And it's nice to give attention to ourselves from time to time as well. So let's continue on with this idea of attention. So you already attend a lot to your kids. We will never be able to give our kids all the attention they want, although it's possible that with teenagers, they feel like they don't want very much of our attention. But with our little kids, they really do want it as much as they can possibly get. We don't have to give them that much attention. But what I'd like you to do is notice when you are attending. Are you attending when your kids are behaving the way you want them to be? Or are you attending when your kids are misbehaving? And that's the thing that I would love for you to notice, because you're going to attend regardless. Because if you're not attending to them when they're behaving properly, because maybe you're like, they're playing together, it's fine, or they've got something going, I can quickly put a load of laundry in, or I can scroll on my phone, or I can get some work done, whatever it is. And then they come to you, Mom, Grandma, I just need this. Yeah, just a second. And we aren't attending to them. They know that if they start to misbehave, we will attend to them. If somebody's pulling somebody else's hair, somebody's in a fight with somebody else, if they're about to knock a vase off of the counter, if they're screaming at the top of their lungs, whatever misbehavior we're seeing, that's going to draw us in to attend to them. So we're going to attend to them one way or another. And the idea here is, let's attend for what we want to see rather than waiting for the kids to misbehave in order to give them attention. So that's just a little bit of something for you to notice, really. One of the questions that I often get from families is, why do they wait until I'm busy to need me? So often, the phone rings, or often you're in the middle of doing something and then they come out. I was talking to one of my clients this week who said, everybody was doing something. It was fine. It was a beautiful morning. I decided to go and sit outside and have a cup of coffee on my own, on my deck. And the moment I went outside, everybody started fighting, and they came out, and so-and-so's calling me names, and I don't like it, and he's being mean to me. Well, he took my truck. Why does that happen? And often times what is happening is they have had a piece of time where they're occupying themselves, and then suddenly they think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, or they just reach a point where they can't, or something happens, they get bored, and so it's easy for them to start bugging somebody else to attend to them, at which point they're misbehaving, at which point you get called into the situation. So I have this internal voice. I had it all the time when my kids were little, and I talk to other parents and they have it as well. Sometimes it lives up here, sometimes it lives in here. And the question is, if you say to yourself, you know what, they're fine, they're good, they're playing, I have time to do one more thing before anybody loses it. That's the exact moment that you need to go in and attend. You need to pay attention. You need to check in on them and say, hey, you are doing such a great job of playing, either playing together, or if there's just one person, you are doing such a great job of independent play, and you're really having fun doing what you're doing. Are you okay to do that? Or do you want to come with me to get the laundry out of the dryer? So if you check in on them beforehand and attend to them for behavior you want to see, you probably won't have them misbehave in order to get your attention. So we want to check in ahead of time. Don't I have to attend when they don't do what I ask? Absolutely, you do, because sometimes kids' misbehavior looks like not doing the thing you ask them to do. So you send them to do something and they're actively not doing it. You keep going back, nagging them to do it. So again, you're going back and giving them lots of attention for the misbehavior. If you stay in the room with them and say, and either make a game out of it or say, I'm going to stay here while you do this. Let's talk about this while you're tidying this up, or I'll choose what shirt you're going to wear, you choose what pants, and then you get one sleeve on and I'll help you get the other one. If you're with them and attending to them for behavior you want to see, that's far more pleasant than attending to them for behavior you didn't want to see. And with our teens, sometimes they don't feel like they want us around at all. It is still important for you to be giving them attention. It is important for them to know that you're watching, that you care, you are sharing your input, you are checking in. They need to know that there's somebody else watching, and they need to know that for their own peace of mind, that they're an important part of the community. They also need to know it because they can use it as an excuse to get out of doing something they're not supposed to do. I can't do that. My mom looks at my phone every day. She will know. There's no way I can send you that pic. Or I can't stay out late because my mom will be checking. And if I'm not home, I will be grounded for the rest of the summer. So a lot of the times our paying attention is actually doing them a favor. Well, it is always doing them a favor. Sorry about that. Because it's helping them to have an excuse to say no to something that they know they should say no to anyway. Okay, so we'll keep going here. I'm not noticing any questions popping into the chat, but if you have any, please feel free to share them. I want to dig in here and talk about some summer screen hacks. And there's a person that I follow on Instagram who I think has it going on, like just knows where it's at. This person's name is Ash Brandon, and their handle on Instagram is The Gamer Educator. I often reshare their posts on my Instagram. And I captured their Instagram post today that they shared because I thought it was just so helpful. It was exactly what I wanted to say, but they'd already gone through all the work of making it happen. So why not give them the credit? So the first, the top item there, if you want kids to have a healthy relationship with screens, make that relationship consistent, not conditional. And they go on to explain in these next two slides. So let me talk to you a little bit, take you through it. If you have questions about it, we can certainly answer them. So we go down to the bottom one there. So this is what it looks like when screens are available conditionally. And I know so many families for whom this is the way. So when we say you can't have that screen time now, maybe later if you're good, they hear gaming is special and off limits. It's all I can think about. When we say you didn't make your bed this morning, so no games today, they hear I can't count on games to be available, so I should play as much as I can whenever I want, which also means stealing and sneaking screen time. When we say you're in a bad mood today, kids in bad moods don't get video games, they hear I thought I was going to get games, but they were taken away. If I express my feelings, the things I like are taken away. And the last one, you're being such a great listener today, you can play for 15 more minutes. They hear my access to games is based on whether or not I make my adult happy. So there's a power component in there. There is a feelings component in there. It's all based on conditions. If you're listening, if you're happy, if you do what I say, if I feel like it as the adult is ultimately the message, the adult with all the power, you may have this. And so their feeling is, I never get enough of this. I've got to take as much as I can. I've got to stay on it for as long as I can. I've got to sneak it when I can, because that's the only way I can get power. So that's what it looks like when screens are available conditionally. But then if we go to this third slide over on the edge here, this is what it looks like when screens are available consistently. And again, this is all from Ash Brandon, The Gamer Educator. So many helpful tips on Instagram. Totally encourage you to follow them. I don't know them personally, but I just love their stuff. When we say it's 11:30, video games are available until noon, and video games could mean screens, could mean iPad, whatever it is. They hear screen time is predictable. I know I can count on my routine. When we say it's screen time, but you didn't finish making your bed, once your bed is made, you can have screens until dinner. They hear games are available even if I've made a mistake. My actions affect how much time I have to play. So if I'm choosing to not do my chore, I'm choosing to have less screen time. But that's because I, the child, made that choice, not the adult deciding, is it on, is it off? When we say this game seems to frustrate you, when you're done playing, we can go for a walk or a bike ride, they hear games affect my mood and that's okay. I can find ways to help calm my body. So it's giving suggestions about how they can take ownership of their health and their feelings. And when we say, you don't want to stop playing games, it's hard to stop something fun. At the end of this level, would you like to turn the game off or should I? The child hears, I can express my frustration when fun things are done without being punished for expressing myself. So when we hold things consistent, when we hold expectations consistently, when we're clear with them, clear with the expectation, clear with the outcome, we've mapped out when that screen time is going to be, then our kids have an understanding that they have some power in the situation again. So we're really coming back to that concept of giving kids power by creating clear expectations and outcomes, rather than us just deciding on or off whether or not they can have screen time. So I hope these hacks are helpful for you. I know that as our kids get older, and so Min, you might be feeling like you're in a different boat because there probably are phones involved. And often that phone time tends to be something that happens throughout the day instead of in these little chunks of screen time. And so you and your family can really be deciding, are there times where we put the phones down and everybody has some no phone time? And often we are really encouraging that. At Parenting Power, we used to say meals and wheels. So anytime you're in a car that the screens are down, anytime you're at a dinner table, screens are away, phones are away for everybody in the family so that there can be that connection. That's one way you might think about it. It's really up to your family to make that decision. And of course, we don't want the phones in the bedrooms at night or any devices in the bedrooms at night. Okay, the last concept here is creativity and connection. How do we build this time into the summer? And again, these are things that we can build into our calendar. These are things we can build into our daily activity. I'm just noticing a question here. Okay, great. The first thing I want to talk about is independent play. So again, for 15-year-old, that's probably not what it looks like. I'm wondering if I skipped a slide. I did. Okay. So let's talk about adventures. Build little adventures into your life, explore the neighborhood, go on a field trip, but it doesn't have to be far. It could be a walking field trip. It could be a bike field trip. It could be a scooter field trip. What can they suggest? And I really encourage you to sit down with your kids at various points in the summer and say, what are the things we really want to do? What could be exciting? And make a big list, get a big piece of scrap paper and write it down or get them to draw pictures. Really just brainstorm that, because then as you're building your calendar for the week or even your calendar for the day, you can be pulling those things off the list and getting your kids to cross them off as you do them so that they feel that they're involved. And so that could look like, if every morning you're going for a walk with your kids while it is still cool, where are you going to walk to today? Are you going to drive somewhere to go for a walk? Or are you just going to walk out and go and see what's happening in the creek or go and see how many birds we can find? And scavenger hunts are really great for that. So you can kind of be looking for things that way. How many birds can we find? What sounds can we hear? I think I did a post a few weeks ago on getting outside and the different kinds of taste, touch, smell, hear, and feel kind of things to, there's one more, whatever sense I didn't say. Can we build that into our adventures? What do they love to do? It's really important to find out what your kids love to do and spend a little bit of time doing that. You don't have to do it all the time, and it's great to introduce them to new things. But the thing about the things that they love is that they can be the teacher to you. They can be the person of authority. And that gives them a lot of power, again, and helps them to show you what they know and feel like they're the grown-up. And when it comes to our teenagers, again, hanging out with them, checking out the music that they like, or getting them to show you a video game that they love to play. And even if you hate playing it, just doing it for a little bit to get an understanding and to have them be the person of authority. It's great to switch roles, and it's great to get them feeling like you can connect with them and you're seeing them for who they really are. Independent play is really important. You are not your child's entertainment system. It is not your job to entertain them 24/7. Well, certainly not 24/7 because they should be sleeping, of course. Kids need to learn to play on their own. And they need to learn to play on their own, sometimes screen free, in my opinion. They need to be bored. They need to look at the clouds, stare up at the sky and see what shapes they can find. They need to be motivated with boredom to find something else to do. And so independent play is really important. And so if you've got a young child who's not yet into independent play, let's take a moment to teach them independent play. It starts with a very short amount of time, the amount of time that they can actually play independently. That might look like a minute. If you give them some chalk to play with or some crayons, or set them up with a few things to do, a few books that they want to look at, let them do that for a certain amount of time where you're not in the room, you're just beside, you could be beside them doing your own thing, or you've stepped out of the room, you've gone to the bathroom, even gone to the bathroom. And then when you come back, and you're going to come back when they're still just about wrapping up their activity, you're going to notice, wow, you are really growing up. You're able to do that on your own. You're doing that independently. You were able to play for 4 whole minutes today, or for 2 minutes, or for 30 seconds on your own today. And that's really neat. And we're going to work on that skill this summer so that you can start to have fun being with yourself, because you're such a fun person to be with. You can have fun being with yourself. How can you do that? And initially you set them up with things that they want to do in those moments on their own. And this is a way to build quiet time if your child doesn't have quiet time right now as well. And it starts out small, and then just build it a little bit, build it a little bit, build it a little bit, and grow that time. Okay. I have often hear people saying, I'm saying, like, what kind of field trips can you plan? They can't even behave at home. There's no way I'm taking them to the zoo. Okay. If that's not something that they can handle yet, then start small. Spend some time doing some things with them in the backyard and playing games with them so that they have the ability to start to learn to listen to instructions. So play freeze tag with them, play sticky tag, where they have to walk right beside you like they're connected to you with invisible glue. And when you stop, they stop. And when you go, they go. And then extend the sticky. So have it be that there's like an arm's length away from them. And when you go, they go. And when you stop, they stop. And have them start to tune into you and get better control over their bodies, because as they're doing a better job of being in control and practicing these little activities in a very confined area, then you can experiment at the park, or then you can experiment in the grocery store, going in to buy a carton of milk and a loaf of bread, get them and go. So these little short practice runs are how our kids learn to be better at being out for longer times as well. And then the last question, and I have to admit, I made this question up because this is how I felt when I was a parent. Do I have to play dolls? I hate dolls. I hate playing dolls and Barbies. And my kids really liked that. And the answer is, you don't have to do it all the time, but every so often, it's great to sit down and play with them and have them teach you, as I said earlier. There are so many things we can be doing with our kids. I put a few ideas here. Music. What kind of music do they love to listen to? How do they move differently to different music? Dancing. Read aloud. So if you've got kids who are practicing reading every day, in order to build fluency, you can be reading aloud to them, and you can be sharing in a story and having them hear how a story flows. So reading aloud is a super valuable task. It's a great thing to do sitting in the shade in the backyard. It's great to do with your teenagers as well, or have them read aloud to you, or listen to a book on a recording. Making movies, have your kids come up with a story and then break it down into scenes and then film it with your camera and have them act it out and then watch the whole movie. Coloring, crafts, water play is a great thing. If you've got young kids, put some water in a dish, get some paintbrushes, have them paint rocks, have them paint the fence, have them paint the house. So many great activities that we can do. And then games. Card games are a great one to build math skills. Number games, pairing up numbers, adding up, play snap to add, play snap to subtract. There are all sorts of card games that you can be playing with your kids or grandkids, which are reinforcing their math facts, but don't look like a math worksheet. So those are just other ways. Okay, another question there. Is there a difference between game playing and watching on devices? Great question, Kathy. Yeah, absolutely there is. And so there's also many things on devices where we are creating things. So we're building things. So there absolutely is a difference in terms of the brain that's being used, the kind of conversation we can be having with our kids when we're doing something together or playing a game together versus just consuming. One of the things we want to be aware of, though, is the dopamine levels. So as we're doing those things, a lot of the time there's a really increased level of dopamine. And if we sustain it for a long time, the dopamine receptors get full, and then the kids just aren't getting the hit that they need. So it's better to do, it is better to do, if let's take a chunk of time, let's say 2 hours in your day is what you're choosing. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it's better to make it 4 chunks of 30 minutes instead of a chunk of 2 hours, because that gives time for kids to enjoy it and have the fun, and the dopamine levels are at a reasonable level. And then they get outside and they do something else. And then later on, when they feel like they're overwhelmed and they want to calm down or just relax, maybe they go on for another half an hour then. So it's a matter of how long, and also what are they doing? Are they creating versus consuming? And again, the gamer educator Ash has lots of great suggestions around that. So it's really important that you make this work for your family, whatever you're doing in the summer. It doesn't have to be what would work for my family. It doesn't even have to be what you thought you might do if you were a good parent before you were ever a parent. It really is about starting small and making small changes for what's going to make sense right now. And I really encourage you to notice what's working and what's not working, and ask the family in a group meeting. So get together with your child, get together with your whole family, and ask, what worked today in our day plan and what didn't? And how can we make that better? Do we want to do a similar day for tomorrow, or how can we make it work better? And everybody has input there. Obviously, if you've got an 18-month-old or a 12-month-old, they might not be having very much input. But for our kids who are older, involving them in these questions and simplifying them down to their age can really make it work. And if you've got older kids, ask them. They will have great ideas about how to make these things work better. So I'll invite you to put any other questions that you have in the chat. And we've got, what have we got? 7 minutes to answer questions. So that will be great. And while you're putting those questions into the chat, I'm just going to give you a summary of the things that I thought were super important in what we talked about today. You might have found something different. And if you don't have a question, I'd love for you to put in the chat, what was of value today? What's one thing that you're taking away to consider? So one of the points we talked about today was getting clear. Know what you want so that you can share it with your kids, and keep it really simple. Number 2 is plan together. This really helps give our kids the power to know what's going to happen and to feel like they're involved. Number 3, attend early. Notice the behavior you want to see instead of waiting for the misbehavior to happen in order to attend to your kids. And number 4 is connect. So we talked about 2 kinds of connection today. One of them was connecting with ourselves. And we took those 6 minutes today for our parent break meditation, just for you to spend a few moments within your body, getting quiet, getting just in touch with yourself. And then you can bring that calm self into the interaction with your kids and have an opportunity to connect with your kids. And hopefully you're building that connection time in on a regular basis. In a way that's going to work for your family. And maybe your kids are at camp much of the time, or at camp every morning, or they're away some of the time, and that's okay. We just need to make sure that we're really clear about what the rest of the day is going to look like, and we need to give them the structure of what time we're going to be leaving for camp and how we're going to get ready to go before that. Can they help pack their bags? And do they know what's happening at camp? And who's the person that they need to ask for help? All of those ways of connecting with them and getting clear and sharing those ideas with them. So just before we come to this slide, I'll just check in the chat and see if anybody shared. Oh, I don't think they have. So that tells me that we probably don't have any other questions here. Because there aren't very many of us on the call, if either of you want to unmute and share any questions you have, or possibly anything that you're taking away from the class today. Was there one thing of value that that made a difference for you? I'd love it if you can share that. I'll let you know that if you are interested, anybody who's watching the replays as well, and you're welcome to email me with your comments and questions if you're watching this on the replay, that if you'd like to join Parent Break, it's really easy to do. So you can head over to www.parentbreak.com/join. Another way you can do that is by joining our private Facebook group. And the link there is there, facebook.com/group/parentbreak. And every week I put the recording of Parent Break into that Facebook group. So if Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time don't work for you, you can check out those Parent Break times at your leisure and just enjoy tuning in and taking a moment for yourself. Have your parent break at a time in your day that makes sense for you. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to contact me by email, julie@juliefriedmansmith.com. You can message me in the Facebook group. You can message me on Instagram. You can send me a text. You can call me. All of my information is right here. I'm just noticing that there's a question here. Kath is saying, all of them had so much value, but get clear and plan together were particularly helpful. That's great to hear. I have to say that those two things can make a lot of difference in your day. It can cut down on the arguments. It can cut down on the power struggles because the children have power. And it can cut down on the kind of weird answers that we give when we aren't really sure because we haven't gotten clear with ourselves. And the other thing is, if there's more than one adult in your home that's working with the kids, it's great if everybody has it clearly what's happening so that the kids can't play one adult against another, which is, of course, what kids do. So I'll just, in the time we've got left here, thanks for that message, Kath. I'll thank you again for coming today. I am creating a new offering in the fall, and I'll be sending out more information through my JFS Parent Education newsletter once a week and through my Parent Break newsletter once a week, and also on the Parent Break Facebook page. I'll be beta testing it soon, probably in the fall, and that'll be for free. And if you are interested in helping me with that, then if you can let me know by contacting me at one of these ways, then I'll put you on the list and invite you and give you some information closer to the time. You can also watch for it in my newsletters. I always, in my newsletters, include some kind of parenting tip. I let you know what's going on for the week if there's anything interesting happening with me. And I also let you know about Parent Break so you can kind of keep up to date with what's going on with me. One more question is here. My granddaughter is very hard to motivate to do anything physical. She isn't a good eater, and I don't think she has a lot of energy. Any ideas? Well, we can certainly talk about that more one-on-one. Certainly, I really encourage. I think music is a very powerful activity inducer, often with kids, just to get them moving to music. Also playing tag and having them be the people that decide on the movement can be a good way to do that. And also having a game where there's a bunch of cards with different movements on them, all turned over, and you take turns turning over a card and choosing what movement that is. And it might be just hopping like a bunny, and maybe it's just all animals, and it's like, how does that animal move? It's really about engaging with what the child loves and seeing if we can make that happen. And I'm happy to talk to you further about that if you would like to connect with me about that. Okay, here we are at 9 o'clock. Thank you for coming. Thank you to those of you who registered and are watching the replay. I am always around and easily, so I'm not always around, and I won't answer you if I'm not, but I'm usually able to get back to you pretty quickly. So if you have a question, please feel free to get a hold of me. And if you know someone who's struggling as a parent, please let them know about me, because I know that parenting is hard and it is much easier when we do it together. So thank you very much for your time today. I will look forward to being with you again. Bye-bye.